You know that moment. Someone says one sentence and your whole body reacts like you touched a live wire. A joke, a tone, a look, and suddenly you're not in the room anymore. You're in an internal courtroom arguing a case you didn't even file. And you tell yourself, I'm just reacting to their behavior. Or, they're the problem. Cute, convenient, also wrong. Here's the brutal truth. If you're triggered, it's not because they're powerful. It's because they touched a locked room inside you. You thought it was a problem. It's a portal. Most people treat triggers like enemies. They fight, explain, defend, post, text, spiral, rehearse speeches in the shower like it's a TED Talk nobody asked for. But that's like your smoke alarm going off and you sprint across the house just to punch the alarm. Congratulations. The alarm is quieter. The fire is still there. So no, this isn't a just be positive video. That's not wisdom. That's emotional tax evasion. Today we're doing something sharper. We're treating your trigger like a crime scene. We're putting up tape. We're collecting evidence. We're following the emotional money trail. Because every time you get triggered, reality is pointing to the exact place you've been avoiding, the part of you exiled to survive. This is the shadow test. Your triggers are not problems, they're portals. And once you see that, you stop wasting your life arguing with symptoms, and you start interrogating the source. Let's define shadow before your brain tries to turn this into spooky astrology. Your shadow is not evil you. It's not demons. It's not some dramatic villain arc. The shadow is simply parts of you that you push down because at some point it was safer to shrink than to be rejected. You learned what got you love. You learned what got you punished. You learned what got you ignored. And then quietly, you edited yourself. You didn't delete the parts, you just buried them. And buried things don't disappear. They leak. That's why triggers are so humiliating, because they don't feel like information. They feel like possession. One moment you're calm, the next moment you're 5 years old again, emotionally barefoot, fighting for your worth with your whole nervous system. Here's the rule nobody tells you. Triggers are predictable. They hit 3 core systems. 1, your worth system, am I enough? 2, your belonging system, will I be chosen or discarded? 3, your control system, am I safe if I can't manage this? So when someone dismisses you, you don't just feel annoyed, you feel erased. When someone succeeds, you don't just feel unimpressed, you feel exposed. When someone ignores you, you don't just feel fine, you feel rejected, and your ego calls it standards. And that's the shadow's favorite trick. It disguises your pain as sophistication. You think you hate their arrogance, but what you actually hate is that you don't allow yourself confidence. You think you hate their loudness, but what you actually hate is that you've been silently starving to be seen. You think you hate their coldness, but what you actually fear is that you're not worth warmth. So you react to them, but you're really defending an old identity. If I'm not perfect, I'm not safe. If I'm not needed, I'm not loved. If I don't control the situation, I lose the game. And then you call that personality. No, that's programming. This is why triggers are portals. Because the moment you stop blaming the outside, you realize the trigger is pointing inward, straight to the part of you that's been locked in the basement, banging on the door, begging to be brought back into the house. Now we do the actual test. Not a vibe, not a quote, not heal your inner child written in cursive. A test. Because understanding doesn't change you, it just makes you more articulate while you stay stuck. Here's the shadow test. 3 questions and 1 action. Simple enough to remember in the moment, sharp enough to change your trajectory. Question 1. What is the exact emotion? Not I feel bad. That's lazy, name it. Is it shame, jealousy, anger, humiliation, fear, disgust, rejection? The more precise you are, the closer you are to the door handle. Question 2. What judgment is this emotion protecting me from? In other words, if I don't react, what am I terrified this means about me? I'm not important. I'm not attractive. I'm behind. I'm not respected. I'm powerless. This is where the mask slips, because triggers don't protect your peace. They protect your image. Question 3. What am I secretly craving in this moment? Not what you should want, what you actually want. Respect, approval, reassurance, being chosen, being seen, being safe. This question is lethal because the shadow loves to pretend you don't need anything. And the moment you admit the craving, you stop being controlled by it. Now the action, give yourself 10% of what you're begging for, not 100%. Don't cosplay enlightenment. 10%. Right now. If you crave respect, stop over-explaining. Speak one clean sentence and let it land. If you crave being chosen, choose yourself. Leave the room, end the conversation, stop auditioning. If you crave being seen, say the honest thing out loud. That stung. If you crave safety, set one boundary. I'm not continuing this until it's respectful. Watch what happens when you do this. The trigger loses power, not because the other person changed, but because you stopped handing them the remote control to your worth. Most people try to heal by demanding different behavior from reality. The shadow test flips it. You heal by reclaiming the part of you that reality is exposing. Let me show you how fast this works. You get triggered by someone who always needs attention. Shadow translation. You've been starving yourself of attention and calling it humility. You get triggered by someone who's confident, almost obnoxiously confident. Shadow translation. You've chained your confidence to permission. You're waiting for someone to approve your existence. You get triggered when someone doesn't text back. Shadow translation. Your nervous system equates silence with abandonment, and you've been living like love is a timed exam. You see it? The trigger isn't a problem, it's a map. And every time you ignore the map, life sends a louder version. Because if you don't learn through insight, you'll learn through repetition. Here's the cruel part, and also the freeing part. The people who trigger you the most are rarely random. They're specialists. They're not here to destroy you. They're here to expose the exact place where you keep betraying yourself. And the reason it feels personal is because it is personal. Just not in the way you think. It's not, they did this to me. It's, my system is still organized around an old fear. So here's your 7-day experiment. For 7 days, every time you get triggered, do not clap back immediately. Do not explain. Do not perform maturity while boiling inside. Pause for 3 seconds. Name the emotion. Ask the 3 questions. Give yourself 10% of what you're craving. And if you do this, really do it, you'll notice something wild. The world doesn't suddenly become kinder, but you become harder to manipulate. You stop being baited into old scripts. You stop confusing anxiety with intuition. You stop calling your wounds standards, because your peace is no longer dependent on other people behaving correctly, which, by the way, is a hilarious strategy if you've met humans. Now, I need to warn you, this is only level 1, because once you stop getting hijacked by triggers, you'll start noticing something even more unsettling. Why do you keep meeting the same person in different bodies? Different face, same energy. Different relationship, same argument. Different year, same wound. That's not bad luck, that's a pattern. And that pattern has a name, the mirror principle. We're going to break down the one rule people misunderstand the most. They're not doing it to you. They're reflecting you. And when you finally see what they're reflecting, you'll stop repeating relationships like reruns, and you'll start choosing your life on purpose.